Hey there, small group leaders. I'm Pastor Brian. This is Pastor John, and we want to welcome you to our small group training series at pursuegod.org. John, let's start with this question. Who is this series for?
Yeah. Hey, welcome to the training. This series is for any small group leader who is serious about obeying the Great Commission to make disciples. If you want to use the tools at pursuegod.org to use your small group as a springboard for disciples who make disciples, you found the right training.
All right, so let's get into it. And lesson one, we're just going to keep it really simple and call it an intro to Pursue God small groups. And let's start with this first point. Small groups allow everyone in a church to receive care, not from one overworked pastor, but from people who know them best. Of course, we're talking about you, the small group leaders. Now, this idea, we can see it in the Old Testament in Exodus chapter 18, when the Israelites were wandering in the wilderness, and Moses' father-in-law comes to Moses and sees all that he's doing for the people. And he said, "What are you really accomplishing here? Why are you trying to do all of this alone while everyone stands around you from morning till evening? You're going to wear yourself out, and the people too. This job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself."
Yes, and this is where I can relate to Moses in a small way. As a pastor over a church of several hundred, there is no way that I can connect effectively with all the people walking through our doors, and let alone care for those people that are walking through our doors every week. So small group leaders, this is why your role is so very important to the church.
Yeah, and as a couple of pastors, we want to say thank you for going through this series and for getting involved in leadership in a small group. Now, for the next point, we're going to get real specific about the Pursue God resources. Small groups that use Pursue God resources are using conversation starters to speak truth in love through the course of a small group season. You might have to pause for a second to read that again and really let it sink in. But it all is coming from this passage in Ephesians chapter 4, verse 15, where Paul says, "We will speak the truth in love, growing in every way more and more like Christ, who is the head of his body, the church." So in a small group, you are putting into action this verse. In the context of your small group community, you're speaking the truth in love to one another, starting with the small group leader. PursueGod.org will help you to start those conversations week after week.
Okay, so let's take a quick look at our Pursue God resource at pursuegod.org. What you have here is essentially a conversation library of all sorts of topics that you can use to help develop a biblical worldview through conversation. You'll see here right at the top of the page, we have our featured series. And then if you scroll down, you'll see that you can tap into individual topics from faith, family, and life. And every one of these topics is organized in a way to help you, again, have a conversation that matters. Let's jump into one of those right now. So you'll see if you choose this topic or any other topic for your next small group meeting, you'll find there's a short video, anywhere from 3 to about 7 minutes typically, that will break the topic down. And then if you scroll down from there, you're going to find some talking points and discussion questions to help you lead a conversation, to help people, again, discover a biblical worldview.
All right, let's break into the tour for a second to cover a couple of questions. John, a small group leader might say, okay, do I need to play the video during small group time? What would you say to that?
Well, I'd say certainly you can do that, but what we've found to work for us is, at some point during the week, with a few days notice for sure before your group time, send that topic out in advance. It's really easy. You just copy a link to a text thread or an email, whatever means that you use to communicate with your group, and just say, hey, take a look at this video before group time. It's a great reminder that group time's coming up as well, and watch the video and come prepared to talk about it. And then as group leaders, you want to be prepared as well. So take a moment to watch the video, become familiar with the talking points in the video. Now, inevitably, there will be some people at times that come not prepared. So you want to be able to speak to the talking points before group time starts and become familiar with the questions. You may even, while looking at the questions, brainstorm a few on your own.
Right.
But the questions aren't a dogmatic method that you have to go through questions 1 through 10 systematically in order to have a successful discussion. That's not the point. They are just a blueprint for you to use to get the conversation going within your group.
So final question before we get back to our tour, and that would be, how do I pick a topic or a series? How do I know how to pick that for my small group?
Well, the answer is it depends. It depends on your connection to your group. It depends on where you feel is the best place through prayer and really discerning where everyone is at in the group, the best place to really engage that group. So there are hundreds of topics on the site that you can choose from. We would encourage you to just tap and click around the site and find a few topics that you think really strike you as those that are going to create some conversation within the group.
So let's get back to the tour and show you a couple more things with that in mind as you're looking for topics for your next small group conversation. If you want to find a shortcut to the categories, you can go to faith, family, life categories. If you've got a men's group or a women's group or a students group, that's where you can find that stuff as well. And of course, all of our training topics, including this series, the small group leader training, is found in the training category. And then one of the simplest ways to find content for your small group is to go to the series page. And that's where you can find all of our series by category. And these series are great for small group use.
So again, don't be afraid to click and tap around the site. Become familiar with all the different topics we have at pursuegod.org so that you can pursue God one topic at a time within your small group.
And so let's finish with this last thought. Pursue God small group leaders are not primarily Bible teachers, but disciples who make disciples. Now, we'll talk more about this in week 3 of this series titled How to Make Disciple Makers in Your Small Group. But this whole idea comes from this verse that we mentioned at the beginning of this video, Matthew 28, 19 and 20. Jesus said, "Therefore go and make disciples and teach these new disciples to obey all the commands I've given you." And I think that this verse is the theme verse for every small group leader.
Think about who Jesus is speaking to here. They were fishermen and tax collectors. They didn't have a seminary level education. And I'm guessing you probably don't either, but that's okay. If you are someone who has trusted Jesus and you're resolved to honor him with your life, then you are the perfect candidate to lead a small group.
So, like Jesus said, go and make disciples and teach them to obey everything, and use the Pursue God resources to do it in the context of your small group. Now, we'll talk more about some of the leader essentials in week number 2 of this series, so make sure to check that out as we continue to learn together about how to lead a small group at pursuegod.org.